evening, friends. Good morning to everyone. India has achieved great success militarily, yet why are Western countries unable to understand this? Today, we are diving into the story of Operation Sindoor, a bold and covert mission that has reshaped South Asia's strategic landscape. India made a decisive move, yet the Western world failed to grasp the magnitude of this success. Why is that? What exactly happened during the operation? And what are the broader international implications of this bold action? To shed light on these critical questions, we are joined by a very special guest, an expert with deep insights into India's strategic thinking and national security approach. We are honored to have Dr. Adityanjee with us. Dr. Adityanjee is the President of Council for Strategic Affairs. Dr. Adityanjee, welcome to the platform.
Thank you, Mr. Sena, for inviting me again on your platform to discuss these important issues. There are international repercussions of India's decisive action, and let's discuss this.
Yes, sir. So the very first question I have for you, how did Operation Sindoor redefine India's military strategy against Pakistan?
I think India's military response, at least in last, I would say, 2 decades, was characterized by what was called strategic patience.
Yeah.
We did not do anything despite calling Operation Parakram.
Yeah.
After 26/11, we literally did nothing. In fact, 2 years after 26/11,
Yeah.
the central government gave $25 million to Pakistan to assist as quote unquote humanitarian aid following the earthquake. The terror state had not even acknowledged that Ajmal Kasab was a Pakistani. They kept on saying it's a false flag operation conducted by India. Things started changing after 2014, and we had minor pinpricks delivered by India, but still the old policy or remnants of it were still there, because on Pathankot military base attack, actually India invited Pakistani delegation to co-investigate the incident. And the audacity of Pakistan is that they brought ISI functionaries in that delegation for investigation. And after the investigation was over, they said that it is a false flag operation conducted by India to malign Pakistan. Then we had Uri and Pulwama. So they were minor, escalation on the step ladder. The Balakot strikes and all, and Uri surgical strikes. But these were very limited in nature. It was almost like I won't even call it slap on the wrist. After the Balakot strikes, Pakistan said that, Indian attacks basically downed a tree and a crow, because there was nothing there, because they had wiped out all the evidence of, terrorist training camp at Balakot. This time, after the terror attack on Pahalgam, India showed the spine and made retaliatory strikes on the terrorist training camps in Bahawalpur, in Muridke, in Muzaffarabad, which are real terror training camps. And India had also told Pakistan that we don't want to touch your military installations, we don't want to attack civilians. Only thing we are interested is dismantling the terror training camp, because the resistance front
mm,
which is an offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba, had claimed
yeah,
the responsibility. And India had told Pakistan that please do not escalate in the escalation ladder because if you escalate, we will have further response. So on May 7th, these terror camps were struck and
mm,
they caused major damage in Bahawalpur. So certain myths or certain red lines were broken,
yeah,
breached. Previously, India always said that, oh, we will not actually
mm,
cross the line of control or the
mm,
international border.
mm,
Bahawalpur is not in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Only Muzaffarabad training camps are in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So you had these anti-terror counter
mm,
strike
mm,
deep in Pakistan, and
yeah,
Pakistan tried to retaliate. And then we had on the night of 10th and 11th of May,
mm,
much deeper strike on 11 Air Force bases and military bases of Pakistan from top north in Skardu to down south in Bolari. And it also included a strike on Noor Khan military base,
yeah,
which is just next in our Rawalpindi. Uh, you know, Pakistan's capital is Islamabad, which is a new town on the outskirts of Rawalpindi. Noor Khan
mm,
Air Base is there. So these were very decisive strikes without Indian troops or Indian Air Force
mm,
crossing the LOC or the international border. These were done in a multi-domain operation, utilizing assets which did not bring any harm to India's soldiers, but Pakistan was actually shelling some of the villages
mm,
in Jammu and Kashmir,
yeah,
especially Nagpur. So, bottom line is that it was a massive attack on Pakistan when Pakistan decided to escalate
mm,
the escalation dominance ladder.
yeah,
And India, without breaching the threshold for
mm,
a nuclear conflict,
mm,
did everything possible to send a message to Pakistan. In fact, they sent a missile which was intercepted by India's interceptors
uh-huh,
in Haryana, I think town of Jajjar. So they have their Chinese and US assets, military assets they tried to deploy,
mm,
but they were not able to do anything. So, in terms of military strikes, and Pakistan was given a stern message to
mm,
the extent that they were the ones who were begging for ceasefire. The DGMO on Pakistani side
yeah,
called Indian DGMO begging for a ceasefire, and Indian DGMO consulted with the appropriate authorities, including the political authority,
mm.
because in this situation, the armed forces had been given a free hand to deem, take whatever action that was deemed necessary.
So, what
But
lessons can be drawn from the Operation Sindhu for future military engagements?
the f- the lesson is that if you are going to use force, use overwhelming force. You
Mm,
know, don't stretch it for too long.
yeah,
Give prompt answer, use overwhelming force, and achieve your strategic objectives immediately
yeah.
without getting into prolonged unnecessary conflict. That is the lesson. And I think it's a lesson for the adversary to understand that the days of strategic patience, strategic restraint are over.
Yeah, yeah,
India has changed her strategic posture. There has been hardening. India is no longer a lamb state as Brahmachalani called after Operation Parakram or lack of Operation Parakram in
yeah,
year 2000 after terrorist attack on Indian Parliament.
yeah. Right.
India shall no longer offer the second cheek to slap at.
Right.
India shall respond
Mm.
with firm and dogged determination against the adversary and inflict the costs on the adversary, which happened.
So how
And
have
in that process, India will not just use kinetic means. It will be a multi-domain response, and whatever response is required in any front, India will utilize that. And that is reflected in suspension of India's Indus Water Treaty.
how has this operation influenced India's defense policy?
Well, it's not the operation that is influencing India's defense policy. It's a rethinking in India's establishment, policy establishment,
Mm.
that made this operation. So it's not, which came first, this operation or change operation influencing India's. There was a rethinking in the policy establishment, both at political level as well as the armed forces level, that it was felt that there's a need to give a decisive answer and make it a successful operation. The political leadership did not ask armed forces to respond with their hands tied behind their back. And that's a change. Armed forces were given total autonomy and freedom to choose the time, the targets, and the means, whatever they deem necessary. And the armed forces did not show any hesitation or lack of determination, because Indian armed forces are highly professional and
Yeah.
they know what they are doing. They have always been successful, except for once in 1962. And they did what they were supposed to do in a very professional, very coordinated manner.
So why did Western analysts misinterpret the outcome of India-Pakistan conflict?
I think there are deeper reasons for that.
Mm.
When you say West, you are talking about the imperial West. That is the legacy of the colonialism and British Empire.
Right.
So, if I brush off the history for the viewers,
Mm.
Pakistan is a creature of imperial West. Pakistan was created for British Empire and its successor hegemon in the world,
Mm.
the United States of America, to continue to have a foothold in the Indian subcontinent.
Mm.
I mean, it's too bad for them that they thought that amongst the two dominions they created as successor states to British India's partition,
Mm.
they thought that the Pakistan would be the dominant, strategically important state, and India will hopefully balkanize into smaller statelets. It did not happen. And you saw that in 50s and 60s and 70s, Pakistan was part of Western military alliances.
Mm.
Pakistan was a member of what used to be called CENTO or Baghdad Pact till it was dismantled. You know, Pakistan hoped that by joining Western led military alliances, it will be able to conquer India, not just Jammu and Kashmir,
Yeah.
the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, but entire India. They had their own plans. So, from perspective of the West, Pakistan is a very important ally for them, and it's a military ally, it's a strategic ally. It has always been there, it has always been in their camp. They have always helped it, they have always built it out. You saw not only just the Western narrative in the Western press, but also the post World War II institutions, the Bretton Woods institutions that were created by the Imperial West, helping Pakistan immediately after Pahalgam terror attacks in
Yeah.
the form of $1.6 billion IMF loan,
Yeah.
$40 billion World Bank loan, and
Mm.
$800 million Asian Development Bank loan. Also, Pakistan has been rewarded by the Imperial West, currently led by the reigning hegemon United States, to basically, uh, you know, with a cryptocurrency pact through Gentry Beach. So, United States has now developed a kind of contract with Pakistan
mm,
to control the cryptocurrency market. I'm not going to speak more detail about it because Trump's own family is involved directly or indirectly in this. So they are making money using cryptocurrency route. Legalities or illegalities involved, I don't know. The other thing is that you saw that in United Nations Security Council, where Pakistan is a non-permanent member for 2 years, Pakistan was elevated to the chair and co-chair of a couple of committees. One was Sanctions Committee on Taliban, and second was, I think, Counter-Terrorism Committee vice chair. So Pakistan has been feted. Pakistan has been dined, wined, and elevated to a higher level as a sop for the loss of face in
mm.
this conflict with India.
So, how can India effectively communicate its strategic perspective to the global community?
Well, for that, India has to control the global communication networks. There's a need to bring a new world information order in
Mm,
which the institutions are not controlled by West, but Indian institutions, whether they are communication networks, whether they are, uh, news agencies, whether they are TV channels, become dominant global partners or players. Otherwise, you won't be able to control because the narrative from West, starting from use of epithet, the Hindu rate of growth,
mm,
has been consistently, persistently, doggedly anti-India, very hostile to India, come what may. If India sends a, uh, sort of, India sends its, Chandrayaan to moon,
mm.
the headlines come, there's so much of poverty in India, and India is going to the moon,
Yeah,
and Western media will make sort of cartoons about it.
yeah.
Okay. So don't expect, I think it's naivete on your part to
Mm,
expect that West will rationally understand Indian perspective
yeah.
and be party to propagation of that. That's not going to happen. Let's be very blunt about it.
So, what role?
So,
Okay, yeah, yes, please, sir.
so the idea that you can convince the West and Western institution, including the press and communication networks controlled by the Imperial West,
Yeah.
to understand and agree with Indian narrative, I
Mm.
think is a delusion, and that's not going to be achieved. So why waste time on doing that?
So, what role does media play in shaping international perceptions of conflicts?
Well, everybody reads media, so that is important. And this is why I'm saying that, Indians, whether government of India, civil society of India, business community of India, India's vibrant press, you have to create Indian institutions that are globally respected. So you need to, I mean, let's start with Doordarshan.
Yeah.
Why does Doordarshan not have an international channel? Beaming to China has CGTN,
Mm.
Russia has Russia Today.
Yeah.
All the Western networks are pro America. They always, put BBC is rabidly anti-India, rabidly pro-Pakistan, always will support Pakistan, always, belittle and try to humiliate India. Why can't Indian media houses create global channels? The problem comes that we create channels and institutions and then we let the Western companies to acquire them. you know, ZTV was doing very good till they made themselves target for acquisition. So I hope that Doordarshan starts an international channel
Yeah.
of repute so that people all over the world can listen to Doordarshan and not just go by BBC and Washington Post and New York Times or CNN. You need to not only control the institutions, you need to control the narrative.
Right.
You need to build the background. Why do you allow Elon Musk to have former Twitter x.com? Why can't you have a micro blogging site which is Indian owned? There was an Indian owned micro blogging site that shut down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, in order to influence minds, yes, media is very important.
Mm.
Issue comes who controls the media. As India is now fourth largest economy in terms of dollars, the nominal terms, having displaced Japan, and in next 2 years, most likely to displace Germany as the third largest economy in terms of dollars or nominal terms, it behooves India to create institutions, whether they are TV channels, whether they are newspapers or magazines or other platforms on the electronic media that are Indian owned. And that's a tall order, but that has to be done
Yeah.
to negate and to counter respond to the Western controlled media.
Okay, so what are the long-term implications of Operation Sindoor on India-Pakistan relations?
Pakistan would be more prepared. Pakistan will be given more aid by China. China has already agreed to give them J-35s in next 4 months at 50% discount.
Yeah.
I think 40 aircraft, stealth aircrafts.
Mm.
Uh, Pakistan will get some sort of ballistic missile shield.
Mm.
They still have, you know, from China.
Mm.
China also has purchased the S-400, which India used very successfully. So most likely what China will do, they always steal the technology, so they will reverse engineer the S-400 and they might actually share that with Pakistan because that is in China's interest. So it's not only message for Pakistan, what India will do for a future conflict because future conflict is bound to happen. Pakistan is still not reconciled. They are portraying it as a victory. The general who was hiding in the basement and
Mm.
had the temerity to send his wife and children to London
Mm.
now has been elevated to field marshal level or fraud marshal level as some of people in Pakistan and especially Imran Khan's party has been calling him. The fraud marshal now will be numero uno openly in
Mm.
Pakistan
Mm.
in total defiance of the civilian leadership
Mm.
and the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Mm.
And he will act because just like General Musharraf, he would like to control the country entirely. I do not envisage I do envisage a situation
Mm.
whereby the fraud marshal becomes a permanent fixture in Pakistan's establishment for next 5 to 10 years because he's not to relinquish power that he has accumulated
Mm.
in the name of national security. So do you think he will just, go away into oblivion like General Bajwa?
Yeah.
No, he won't. And if he is there, this is a general who's a jihadi general. He got his basic education in madrasa. He's Hafiz-e-Quran, which means he memorized the entire Quran as a kid, actually,
Hmm.
when he was a student in madrasa. And he does not fail any opportunity when he will be reciting the ayahs of Quran to Pakistani army to further indoctrinate them. In fact, on April 16th, a week before the Pahalgam attack, he talked about two nation theory and how they are superior to kafirs and how they can, you know, have the advantage
Hmm.
of being Muslims and a superior religion, superior race, so they can counter the adversary. So my own assessment is that just like Musharraf
Hmm.
captured power by a coup,
Hmm.
and Supreme Court of Pakistan invoked so-called doctrine of necessity to allow him to govern the country for 3 years.
Hmm.
Now there won't be any coup. There will be a permanent position
Hmm.
as field marshal given to Asim Munir
Hmm.
by Pakistani establishment, which means he becomes the de facto dictator of the country for next few years. And whenever there'll be a threat, domestic threat to his power,
Hmm.
he will generate a conflict with India. So India beware.
So, what steps can be taken to ensure lasting peace in the region?
Steps taken by whom? That is the question.
India.
By India, then you have to continue to build up your defense posture. You never slack down. You be prepared for every eventuality. India needs to increase its defense budget in the range of 4 to 5% of the national budget.
Okay.
That is a necessity for survival of India as a nation, because people talk about 2.5 front war, and I'm going to share with you something that I've been thinking.
Hmm.
India faces a four front war, and let me tell you how India faces a fourth front war. Number one front is up north, the China, who is our main adversary.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate China. It's not a benign neighbor.
Hmm.
Having controlled Tibet, it is a direct threat. Then you have Pakistan on the west. You have a third front in Bangladesh on the east.
Yeah.
It's no longer a benign nation. It's a hard Islamic, hardcore jihadi nation that is giving bases to both China as well as to America. And some irresponsible members of their armed forces and their fundamentalist parties have said that all the university enrolled male students are part of our army. And push come to shove, we will inundate India with our students. So these are the three front.
Hmm.
People in India are very fond of talking about the zero point 0.5 domestic front.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add to you the Western imperialist front, another zero point 0.5. When you see
Hmm.
imperialist institutions that were created after end of Second World War, lock, stock, and barrel,
Hmm.
fall at Pakistan's feet. IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, United Nations Security Council.
I have only 4 minutes of time. I think I have one more question with me.
Go ahead.
One very important question: how can India assert its strategic autonomy while engaging with global powers?
For that, India has to improve and increase and consolidate her comprehensive national power. There is no shortcut. India has to work very hard and harden all the institutions of the state, all the institutions, not just armed forces. And India has to go on an economic trajectory that India becomes the third economic power in the dollar terms, in nominal terms, sooner than later. Once India's economy crosses $10 trillion, the West would be forced to acknowledge India's strength. India also needs to stop subsidizing China and its PLA to the tune of $100 billion annually that we are doing at this point in time. The trade deficit with China must be eliminated, not curtailed. You have to put sanctions if they are required. You have to do domestic manufacturing. You have to build local supply chain. You have to count on international companies and let them, established production facilities and factories in India. So you have to have a multi-pronged response in order to face the challenges. And that is all I would say, that improve your comprehensive national strength. Eliminate at least the domestic 0.5 front. That you can do easily if you have the determination.
So thank you, friends. So that was all for us today. Operation Sindoor wasn't just a message to India's enemies. It was a clear signal to the world. Underestimating India can be a costly mistake. We hope Dr. Adityanjee insights help you understand the truth behind the headlines. Until next time, stay aware, keep questioning, and keep thinking. Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. It was a pleasure to be on your platform. My parting message to your viewers and audience within India, specifically to 0.5 front, is Nindantu Niti Nipuna Yadivastuvantu Lakshmi Gachatu Samavishatu Va Yathaishtam Adyaiva Va Maranam Astu Yugantareva Nyayat Pataha Pravichalanti Padam Nathira. So you have to learn, even if you are the single sole voice in the entire committee of nations, so be it. You have to treat the righteous path. That's a message to domestic viewers.
Thank you.